The champagne flowed freely at the TechFuture launch party as my brother Michael basked in the attention of Silicon Valley's elite. His new app, DreamSpace, was being hailed as revolutionary, a breakthrough in virtual reality social networking that would change how people connect online. Standing in the corner of the crowded rooftop venue, I sipped water and watched the scene unfold. The giant screens displayed live user numbers, over 2 million downloads in the first week. The tech press was calling it the fastest-growing social platform launch in history. "Sarah," Michael's voice boomed across the space. "Come join us. After all, you were there at the beginning, weren't you? Back when DreamSpace was just a crazy idea." I moved closer to his group of investors and tech journalists, noting how his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. He knew exactly what he'd done, and he knew that I knew too. "My sister actually worked on an early prototype," Michael continued, his arm around my shoulders in a show of false affection. "But you know how it is with first attempts. Sometimes you need a fresh perspective to turn a rough concept into something truly revolutionary." The journalist nodded, already familiar with Michael's carefully crafted origin story. The brilliant entrepreneur who transformed his sister's basic social media app into a groundbreaking VR platform. It was a great narrative, one that made him seem both innovative and family-oriented. It was also a complete lie. 18 months ago, I'd shown Michael my nearly completed VR social platform, the result of 3 years of coding and innovation. I developed new algorithms for realistic avatar movement, created seamless integration between virtual and augmented reality, and built a unique social interface that adapted to user behavior. "This is incredible," he'd said, studying my code. "But you need help launching it. Let me show it to some investors. With my business connections and your technical skills, we could make this huge." I trusted him. After all, he was my brother, and he'd always been the business-savvy one while I focused on programming. What I didn't know was that he'd already registered a company in his name, filed provisional patents, and prepared to launch his revolutionary platform. "Sarah was instrumental in the early stages," Michael was telling a reporter now. "But sometimes you need to know when to let go and let the professionals take over." I thought about the real code running beneath DreamSpace's sleek surface, my code with a few cosmetic changes Michael's team had added. What none of them knew was that buried deep in the architecture was something I'd built just for this moment. My phone buzzed. A message from Jamie, my best friend and fellow programmer. "User count just hit 2.5 million. Timeline still good." I texted back, "Perfect. Everything's ready for tomorrow's update." Michael was still holding court, explaining his vision to the enthralled crowd. The key breakthrough was realizing that social connection in VR needed to be more intuitive. That's when I developed the adaptive interface. I almost laughed. He was describing my core innovation, the algorithm I'd spent 2 years perfecting, the one he'd stolen along with everything else. Ms. Chen, a young programmer from Michael's team, approached nervously. "There's something weird in the backend code. Some sequences we can't quite understand." "Have you asked Michael?" I suggested innocently, since he developed the core architecture. The programmer glanced at Michael, then back at me. "We did, but he said to focus on the user interface updates. It's just, the base code seems incredibly complex, almost like it's waiting for something." "I'm sure it's fine," I said, checking my watch. 23 hours until the truth would become impossible to hide. Later that night, in my apartment overlooking the city, I reviewed the activation sequence one final time. The code I'd hidden in DreamSpace wasn't malicious. I wouldn't risk harming the users who'd embraced the platform. Instead, it was something much more elegant, a revelation protocol that would systematically expose the app's true origins. My laptop pinged with an email from Dr. Zhang at Stanford's Computer Science Department. "Remarkable work on the neural network adaptation. The paper you submitted last year predicted exactly what we're seeing in DreamSpace's behavior patterns. Would you be interested in discussing it at next month's symposium?" I smiled, remembering the research papers I published under a pseudonym, documenting my development process without revealing the connection to DreamSpace. Another piece of evidence waiting to emerge. My phone buzzed again. Michael this time. "Great party, sis. The investors love meeting you. Listen, about that stock option package we discussed. Why don't you come by the office tomorrow? We can work something out." He was trying to buy my silence, offering a fraction of what he'd stolen. What he didn't know was that tomorrow's routine update would trigger a cascade of revelations: original code timestamps, development logs, early testing data, and most importantly, the blockchain verified proof of creation I'd embedded in every core function. I opened my project folder, looking at the original DreamSpace interface, the one I designed before Michael ever saw it, the one that would reappear across millions of users' screens tomorrow, along with its true creation date and designer. A text from Jamie: "Everything's in place. The tech blogs are going to go crazy when they see this." I walked to my window, watching the lights of Michael's launch party still glowing atop his corporate headquarters. He thought he'd won, that his stolen success was secure. After all, who would believe the quiet programmer sister over the charismatic tech CEO? Tomorrow, they wouldn't have to believe. The evidence would speak for itself. Looking forward to tomorrow's meeting, I texted Michael back: "I'm sure it will be memorable." Across the city, servers hummed, counting down to the update that would change everything. In less than 24 hours, 2 million users would learn the truth about DreamSpace's creation. But more importantly, they'd see firsthand what the app's real innovation could do. Because while Michael had been busy stealing my work, I'd been perfecting it. The hidden code wouldn't just reveal the truth, it would unlock DreamSpace's full potential, features so advanced that Michael's team hadn't even recognized them in the architecture. I smiled, thinking of tomorrow's headlines. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destruction, it's about revelation. The morning of the update, I arrived early at Michael's office. The development team was already in crisis mode, gathered around monitors displaying unusual activity in the system. "Something's happening with the core architecture," the lead developer explained to Michael as I quietly took a seat. "It's like the code is evolving." Michael paced the room, his carefully maintained composure cracking. "Then stop it. Roll back the update." "We can't," another programmer said. "The changes are embedded too deeply. They seem to have been there from the beginning, just waiting." I opened my laptop, watching the activation sequence unfold exactly as planned. Across millions of devices, DreamSpace was revealing its true nature and its true creator. The first change appeared in the user interface. The sleek but simplified design Michael's team had implemented began shifting, revealing the more sophisticated system I'd originally built. Avatars moved more naturally, environments responded more intuitively, and the social interaction algorithms adapted in real time. "This is impossible," Michael muttered, staring at the screens. "These features weren't in the code." "Actually," I said quietly, "they were always there. You just didn't understand the architecture well enough to see them." The room fell silent as everyone turned to look at me. On the monitors, another change rippled through the system. My original documentation beginning to appear in the public code repository, complete with timestamps and blockchain verification. "What did you do?" Michael demanded, his face pale. "I didn't do anything," I replied. "The code is simply revealing its own history. Every innovation you claimed, every feature you said you developed, the truth was always there, waiting to be discovered." His phone began buzzing frantically. The tech press was already picking up the story. "DreamSpace's hidden architecture reveals true creator," read one headline. "Stolen innovation. Questions arise about platform's origins," declared another. "You'll destroy everything," Michael shouted. "The company? The platform?" "No," I corrected him. "I'm making it better. Watch." On the main screen, DreamSpace's user interface transformed into something far more advanced than what Michael had launched. The simplified social features blossomed into a fully realized metaverse, with capabilities that made his version look like a primitive prototype. "This is what DreamSpace was always meant to be," I explained as millions of users discovered new features appearing on their devices. Not just another social platform, but a true breakthrough in how we connect and interact digitally. Jamie's text appeared on my phone. "It's working perfectly. The blockchain verification is irrefutable. Every tech blog and news outlet is running the story." Michael's team of developers had stopped trying to fight the changes and were now staring at the code in amazement. "These neural network adaptations," one whispered. "The environmental response algorithms. They're years ahead of anything else in the field." 3 years ahead to be exact, I said. "The time it took me to develop them before they were stolen." Michael slumped into a chair as his phone continued buzzing with calls from investors and board members. Why? He asked finally. Why not just expose me immediately? Why wait? Because I wanted everyone to see the difference between stealing an innovation and understanding it. I turned to his development team. Every feature you struggled to implement, every limitation you couldn't overcome, it was because you were working with code you didn't truly comprehend. The office doors burst open as members of the board rushed in, followed by company lawyers. On the screens above, DreamSpace continued its transformation, user numbers climbing as people discovered and shared the new features. Ms. Chen, the board chairman addressed me directly, ignoring Michael. We need to talk about the future of this platform. Over the next few hours, the truth emerged in full. My research papers, published under a pseudonym, proved I had developed the core technologies. The blockchain-verified documentation showed the original development timeline. And most damaging for Michael, his own emails revealed the careful planning behind the theft. By evening, he had been removed as CEO. The board, desperate to salvage the company's value and reputation, offered me full control of DreamSpace along with a significant ownership stake. Your brother's actions were criminal, the chairman explained. But what you've built, it's extraordinary. The platform's value has actually increased since this morning's revelations. I thought about the years of work, the innovations Michael had tried to claim as his own. I'll take control of the technology and development, I agreed. But I have conditions. 1 week later, I stood on the same rooftop where Michael had celebrated his stolen success. Addressing a different crowd, developers, researchers, and tech innovators excited to work with DreamSpace's true architecture. Innovation isn't just about having a good idea, I told them. It's about understanding it deeply enough to make it real. DreamSpace was never meant to be a walled garden controlled by one company. From today, we're open sourcing key components of the platform, creating a foundation for developers worldwide to build upon this technology. The announcement was met with enthusiastic applause. Open sourcing hadn't been popular with the board initially, but they'd come around when they saw how it would position DreamSpace as the standard bearer for VR social interaction. Later that night, I received an email from Michael, sent from his parents' house where he'd retreated after the scandal broke. I convinced myself I was just being business smart, that your work needed my vision to succeed. I didn't understand that true innovation comes from more than just seeing potential. It comes from the dedication to develop it fully. I'm sorry, not that it matters now. I thought about responding but decided some silences are more eloquent than words. Instead, I focused on the messages flooding in from developers already building on DreamSpace's open-source framework, creating applications I had never imagined. My phone buzzed with a text from Jamie, ready to show them the next phase. I smiled, looking at the code for DreamSpace's next evolution, innovations that would make today's revelations seem small in comparison. Not yet, I replied. First, let's see what others can build with the truth. Standing in my new office, the one Michael had once claimed, I watched the sun set over Silicon Valley. On screens throughout the building, DreamSpace hummed with activity, millions of users exploring its true potential. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about exposing a lie, but about revealing a greater truth. Michael had tried to steal an innovation, but in doing so, he'd ultimately helped prove something more important. Real progress comes from understanding, not ownership. The platform he tried to control was now growing beyond anything he could have managed, driven by the collaborative spirit of true innovation. In trying to contain something revolutionary, he inadvertently helped set it free. And that, I realized, was the greatest victory of all.